Hello and welcome back to Tales from the Infrared. This week I'm your host, Jim Kilvarn, and normally we have the usual suspects, but the only one for this week is Rachel Edwards. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm okay. Looks like everybody else decided to go off and watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
Looking at you,
Neff, Dean, Christian.
Yeah, they all mysteriously vanished except for Neff, who at least admitted he was going to see Star Wars.
Right. But we do have some guests this week, which is Miyamoto Usagi. How you doing, Bunny Rabbit?
Hi. Not bad, not bad. I'm in the cold wastelands of Hoth right now. It was the best place to see the thing yesterday because I could get into the local Hoth IMAX without too much problem. So
yes. Oh, I do have to point out there are no spoilers for the new episode in this show. We will not spoil anything, though we will say Han shot first.
Yes.
And of course, the amazing and fun. What?
Han shot.
Yes. Han shot first.
No, just Han shot. Shooting first implies that even Greedo got the damn thing out of the holster.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
And of course, the wonderful and amazing Catrice McLeod.
Hello. Not much else to say. Usagi kind of beat me on the Han just shot, so I got nothing.
Fair enough. And running the back room, the great, the powerful, the man, the myth, the Huff, James Huff.
Hello.
Wow. I swear, I'm hearing crickets a lot today.
Well, you know.
I'm just thinking to myself, James Huff and stuff.
That's just a crack in the fire. I had to cook a wumpus.
All right, so I'm going to let you three fight over who gets to read over the show notes.
Not it.
Rachel.
Not it.
I said not it first.
Yes, but you got elected. So, Rachel, you're...
You've got to be fucking shitting me.
No, if I was fucking shitting you, that'd be something we'd have to take offline for.
Yeah, I'm just not into scat, you know?
Anyway, yeah, I don't think any of us are.
All right.
Ooh.
I'll get comfy here. The radicalization of Luke Skywalker, a Jedi's path to jihad. What?
Yes.
Oh, jeez. This guy tries to paint a picture of evil where it doesn't exist, painting Luke Skywalker as a terrorist instead of a hero. While it is worth looking at, it paints an absolute picture without any possible dissent, even citing works from government sources. Well, anyway, Mellisa Harris Perry says Star Wars is racist because Darth Vader is black. This one is so lol-worthy it had to happen twice in a lifetime. Mellisa Harris Perry goes full retard and starts spouting words that were written by Kevin Smith back in Chasing Amy. Just be sure to watch Hooper X's rant on this before you listen to her. You know what? It's not even Darth Vader is black. It's just reasons. Star Wars is racist because reasons. Okay? Anyway, being a feminist Star Wars fan is complicated. Suzanna Bobadilla, or is it Dia, decided to explain how problematic the Star Wars franchise has been in her life. Every excuse to call the films racist and sexist come out. And Star Wars is not a boys' movie anymore. Earlier this month, J.J. Abrams, the director of the newest installment of Star Wars, got into hot water for calling the franchise a movie that dads take their sons to. He quickly walked that back, saying he meant it used to be a boys' club, but hoped The Force Awakens out Friday would appeal to everyone. Now, you know what? I gotta take fucking issue with that. It's never been a boys' movie, okay? It's been a movie that a whole bunch of different people come to see. Damn it.
Well, that looks like we just found our first topic, so go for it, Rachel.
I was taken to Star Wars when I first came out by my sisters who drove.
Yeah. And this is not an isolated incident. Everybody, you talk to enough fans, and this is why I took issue. There was like this video from Bustle that came on. They were saying that these women were bitching about how they got questioned on their Star Wars cred because they don't look like Star Wars fans. You know, it's not that you don't look like a Star Wars fan. It's that the first thought that comes to your mind when watching something is, wow, this is really great, but I wish there were more people with vaginas in it. That's why someone asks whether or not you're a fucking fan, because you care more that the protagonist is female than you care about anything else there. And you
go ahead. I actually have a thought on that, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, but I mean, they feel like you have to have a female protagonist to appeal to women. And it's complete bullshit, and you don't necessarily need that. I mean, I would rather be questioning something on its merits than whether or not it had a certain number of women and minorities in it. However, Star Wars has never had a shortage. Well, okay, maybe there aren't as many women, but cumulatively in the movies and in the extended universe, there are plenty of women, and you would know that if you did more than just watch the movies.
Well, my thing on this, and this goes back a ways into part of my time in the authentic community. It's if you actually need to see someone of your race, your gender, to feel included in something, how fucking stupid are you? How lacking in compassion or empathy or anything when it comes to human beings are you? Because if you watch something, I'll be honest, I went and I watched the movie recently. I'm not going to give spoilers, but I thought the best character in the movie was the black guy. I identified more with the black guy than I did with, hell, even with Han Solo. If you need to be represented in a movie, in something, in order to feel included,
it basically means you're racist.
Yeah, it basically means you're racist, you're sexist. You need to see this. You need to see you in this in order to no. You have no empathy. You have no ability to see yourself as. Yeah, that's the whole point of SJWs is we need to see these people. No, you don't.
You're more than racist. You're narcissistic, basically.
Yeah.
You're trying to find yourself in the world.
That's kind of the point of, like, the protagonist anyway, is you want the most generic kind of individual that most people can identify with. So you want their personality generally to be relatively subdued. You don't want them to be very over the top, because then it turns into a character instead of an avatar. Like, Karen Strong's explained that more than enough times for things like romance novels and romance movies. It's an avatar, not a character, because you're supposed to put yourself in their shoes. That's why Luke was so down to earth and generic. He was just random kid who happened to grow up on a farm, and he was about as bland and normal as humanly possible, because the idea was you wanted to see, like, what would happen if you were put into his shoes and kind of guided through the movie in that sense. But, like, when you try to force it so that it's only for this particular niche, it's like, okay, we have to have this transgender character, and this character has to be lesbian, this character has to be Mexican, this character has to be black, or whatever, and it's like all these, like, little nuanced things, and it's like, you're missing the point. You're trying to subdivide it so that every individual gets their own personal protagonist. And it's like at that point, you don't have a movie or a book or anything else because you can really only have the one protagonist for the most part that guides you through things. And then everything else has to exist as something for the protagonist to encounter in relation to such. Maybe you can bend it a little with like sort of the buddy love style of movie, but for the most part, you only really want one person walking you through it.
I can buy that. But there's also the idea that there are characters out there that you may not identify with what is ethnically yours. I mean, let's face it. I'm a bunny rabbit. I kind of like the idea of being attracted to a guy that can wield a lightsaber and just kind of fell into the circumstance. Or at times it allows you to bounce between the avatars. Or I may be this scruffy-looking nerf herder type guy. I'm not going to look like that as a rabbit in a kimono.
Well, I'm going to partially disagree. Yes, you can sit there and get into the avatar, whereas good storytelling, you can still like a well-rounded character that has a personality. And I'll be honest with you, some of my favorite stories, Dresden Files, even Mass Effect to a certain degree, the characters I cared about the most had the personalities.
Oh, yeah, well, that's always going to be the case, like, because you can't really care about the protagonist so much because they don't have much of a personality to care about. It's the eccentric ones that are off on the sides, but those supporting characters, you can do more with them because, well, you can make like 20 different characters and it doesn't matter if not everybody agrees with every one of them. Everybody will just pick their own favorites. Like, once you have like strong, very well-defined characters, people just pick their favorites and focus on those ones. They pretty much ignore the ones they don't care about. So as long as you have a lot of characters, it's okay. But when every character is designed to be as bland and generic as possible, and the only difference is the shade of their skin, then you don't have anything to work with. People can't identify with like this crazy, zany, off-the-wall character because they don't exist. The only thing they have is, well, it's exactly the same as the other character, except he's black.
No,
Yeah.
and this is what I dislike about the FJWs getting into things. They're so disliking anyone extraordinary or anyone being able to react in extraordinary conditions. They'll do everything they can to force to meet the lowest common denominator. And that's not how you build a good story. That's not how you build a good society. You push yourself.
And this is the situation that we're in right now. Because with we know that the J.J. Abrams wanted to make this whole thing like really, really social justicey and everything like that. In a way, he's like, oh, we want it to be more inclusive, and I have no idea how good or bad this movie is going to be. I really don't know. But the thing that bothers me so much is that a lot of the people who claim to be fans and all this were like, oh, well, we really felt that the lack of diversity in this was problematic, but they don't understand that the whole film was not just about diversity of humans, it was about diversity of species, meaning that ultimately the color of your skin didn't matter in Star Wars because there was so many different kinds of creatures in it that were all...
Basically, it didn't matter if you were black or white because you were human. All humans were bunched together.
Yeah,
and then you had, like,
Come on.
the Twi'leks and, like, the Hutts and all the other different species, and there's no real room for it to be about, like, racism unless they're going to be, like, using, like, the alien species as, like, a metaphor, but then that seems to go right over their head because they're complaining about, like, well, there's not enough black people in it or women, and it's like half these species don't even have a female gender. They don't even have a male gender.
Most people like to identify with a 7-foot-tall walking carpet. Come on.
Hey, we love the
it brings
7-foot-tall walking carpet.
Yes, we
And
do.
yeah, it brings total new definition to the term carpet muncher.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
God.
here's the thing that really will annihilate some brains out there. There is a theory that Chewbacca, if you read some of the extended universe, Chewbacca is actually female and left her family because of a life debt to Han Solo.
Oh. That's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean,
Does
you
it really
don't see
change
a whole
the character any, though?
Yeah,
Has
it doesn't
really
change the
altered any?
character because Chewie is still fucking awesome.
Yeah. And Han still gives him grief.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but Chewie also gives Han grief right back. Trust me.
That would explain great many naggings he gets from Chewie.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me about all this, when we're talking about things like diversity, they don't actually touch on the kind of diversity among female characters that they would actually need. And this is the reason why there's the protagonist tends to be a white male, and it's because that's the only kind of character that you were really allowed to depict and have shit happen to them, like seriously terrible shit. Otherwise, people are like, "Oh, this is problematic. This is terrible." You can't actually have characters that are flawed in a certain way if they are a female or a minority anymore. Or you can, but they have to be seen as sympathetic.
Yeah, but that's why nothing passes the Bechdel test. It's because, well, you have to be able to harm both the protagonist and the antagonist. They have to be held accountable for their actions. If you're the villain and you destroy an entire town, you have to be like, well, you just fucking killed like 300,000 people. We have to hold you accountable to this. If it's a female character, can't really do it so much. If it's the protagonist, they have to have like their shitty past where they've done something terrible, or they have to be like held to an unrealistic standard where they're trying to like even just the basic plot point of the hero trying to win the girl's heart. It's like the woman doesn't have to win the man's heart, so she can't use that as plot point. It's always the guy who has to do the earning part. Like anytime you have this kind of stuff, you can't have really protagonists or antagonists as women for the most part because you're not allowed to hurt them. You can't torture them. You can't do terrible things to them. Well, yeah, there are some exceptions.
Well, actually, I will tell you the answer to all of this, and the reason why you almost never see seriously evil like female characters or ethnic minority characters in mainstream films. And that's because the only place where it's acceptable for any of them to ever actually be evil when they never ever get any flack for is when most of the cast reflects that exact character. Like, for example, when you have things like mostly female cast, it's totally fine to have a female villain there. Or when you have a mostly black cast, it's totally fine to have like an evil black guy there or an evil black woman. Like unapologetically so. That's like the only time when you're allowed to do that. And it's the only time when nobody will give you shit for it. Think about it.
And the biggest problem with that is, not all people are going to be good, and the skin color, the gender doesn't fucking matter. I mean, let's be honest. There are horrible people out there, and they're of all races, all sexes. Why do we protect anybody? Why don't we lambaste everybody?
Well, because
people will get torn up. People will cry and whine.
Yeah.
That's not how we act normally. No, it's a story. And yes, you do act like that normally.
Honestly, we should be able to just do whatever to any character. Like, it doesn't matter what they are, but we have some limitations. Like, you normally can't, like, torture and murder, like, women and children. It's okay with it if it's men. Like, that's why...
Well,
it's not even the protagonist, but this, like, the mooks, like, all of the crappy, like, stormtroopers that have... you never get to see the face of. They're basically all men, because you can kill hundreds of men at a time. Nobody fucking cares about them.
But see, that's the thing that I disagree with is, back in the day, in the days of, like, the Old West movies, the black and whites, the villain was recognized by being mean to women and children.
Yeah. Actually,
and that's how you knew who was the bad guy, was because they captured women and children. They tortured women and children. That's the bad guy because they weren't nice.
There's actually a set of rules in Hollywood for when you can kill a woman. There's 5 specific details that you can, or instances under which you can do so. First one is if it's a horror movie. Killing a man does not make it a horror movie. That happens in every movie. If you kill a woman, however, okay, shit just got real. This is actually like a serial killer kind of thing. Like, he doesn't care what it is that he's killing. He's going to kill, like, even innocent people kind of thing. Second one is if she's shown not to be like a real woman. So, for example, like the Queen Alien in Aliens, or that, I forget her name, the one in Blade Runner where she turns out to be a robot, then it's okay to kill them because they're not really a woman.
Okay, I gotta ask on Vasquez in Aliens.
She
murdered herself.
She acts way too much as a man, and she does murder herself.
Okay, fair enough.
She's the one who kills herself. Third rule is she can be killed if she threatens the life of an innocent woman. So, like, Total Recall, the 2 women get into a fight. The evil one tries to kill the good one, and therefore she's allowed to be shot in the head because she proved that she will hurt an innocent woman. The fourth rule that you can do it under for circumstances is she has been seen in no more than 3 scenes, so you never really understand that she's a real woman because she's just like a side bit character. If she's in 3 or more scenes, then basically she counts as a fully fledged character and as female, so you can't hurt her anymore. And the final limitation is if the rest of the movie is focused on avenging her death. So, like, any movie where you have, like, oh, there's a woman there and she's like the guy's wife, and then she dies, and then he spends the whole rest of the movie getting vengeance on her, then it's okay because you're helping out, like, the woman who was harmed. But otherwise, in Hollywood, you cannot harm a woman, or at least not kill her, for any other reason than one of those 5.
You just blew my mind, but it actually totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But maybe we should move on to the whole jihad thing and tie that in, because that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. No, I was reading this, and this is absolute horse hockey.
Well, if you want your tie-in segue, consider that they are willing to hold the white male responsible for things that he isn't even doing.
Exactly. And I was discussing this as part of notes last night here. He isn't radical, he's just an everyday kid. And they were talking about him being isolated, no friends, difficulty forming relationships outside the home, being attracted to groups that offer comradeship. This is absolute bullshit. If the one thing about the special edition of Star Wars is that it brings out Biggs. Biggs was his friend. He got signed on to the Academy, which he led into the Rebel Alliance. Every one of his friends were signing up for the Academy to get into the Rebel Alliance, and they were leaving. He was the only one left. The one that's held him back is his uncle, because he needed him on the farm.
I will point out the misnomer there. It wasn't the Rebel Alliance Academy. It was just the Academy, the Imperial Academy, actually.
Yeah,
but most of the Imperial Academy people who realized something was wrong would swap over to the Rebel Alliance. The thing with the Rebel Alliance is the Rebel Alliance was formed out of people who basically realized the Empire was doing some bad shit.
Yes. And if anything, I would say this is more the common man stepping up to try to fight the rising tyranny.
Well, that's the thing.
It's a Patriot movie more than anything.
Well, taken into account, like, yes, J.W. Mine said as well, like, they think they're the ones who are the freedom fighters that are trying to save the world from the tyranny of the evil corporate empire or whatever, or the patriarchy or whatever they want to label it as. Like, every freedom fighter is a terrorist. It's just whether you happen to agree with them at the end of the day as to whether they were the lesser of two evils or not. Because overthrowing a government by force, even if the government kind of deserves to be overthrown, you're still looking at the fact that you're using violence to overthrow, like, a government. And you're going to harm everybody in the process. Like, you can't overthrow it, like, without causing collateral damage. So
Yeah.
there's always going to be that element that technically, yeah, they are being terrorists, but are they the good kind of terrorists, the approved kind of terrorists?
Or the ones that are actually working for what would mostly seem as as a good.
Yeah. It's the whole Robin Hood thing. He's still technically a terrorist.
Well, yes, and every person who signed the Declaration of Independence realized that they were signing either a warrant of treason or a statement of freedom.
Well, that's the thing, is every single person who fights in any type of revolution, be it the Revolutionary War of the U.S., the French Revolution, whatnot, yes, to some degree, it's true, they are terrorists, but let's look at the motivations behind that.
Right.
And I think that's the part that this guy misses, is that it's the motivations behind it that prove whether the person's actually a terrorist or someone worth helping, worth fighting with. Because, you know, you look at George and the rest of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, that was signed to say, we no longer accept your rule. We no longer accept the violence and the restrictions you're putting upon us. We will not live in a society that destroys our freedom. It's real oppression right there. And
I got to borrow over from another universe here, an episode of Star Trek here, to kind of draw this point a little bit better. It was where they resurrected alien disguised as Abraham Lincoln. Surak went up with Kirk and Spock against some of the evil minds of history. The evil people were if they had won, would have granted power. Kirk was fighting for the people on his ship and to make sure they were safe. That seems to be the delimiting difference here. That's why they didn't understand the concept of good and evil.
Well, keep in mind there's also the issue of the path to hell is paved with good intentions. If we want to do the standard thing of invoking like the Nazis. You don't get an entire country to all agree to atrocities and such by appealing to how evil you are. It's like, no, they thought they were the good guys. They thought that, like, they used the same tactics. They said, well, these people are hurting us. The Treaty of Versailles basically is crippling our economy and killing people by starvation. This is a terrible thing. We have people that are like France and England are doing terrible things to our country and we are dying because of it. The Jews are exploiting our country because of being wealthy bankers and such, and they can use interest rates that are doing terrible things to the people. And it's like, it's honestly all justified because they're the evil ones. We're just trying to like take care of ourselves and survive.
Now,
But then that excuses any bad behavior.
Yeah. Now, this is where there was a point that if Hitler had stopped, he may have come back as a just leader of Germany. If he had stopped at the last appeasement where they gave him back the Rhineland, and had stopped there, had just rebuilt Germany from there, had proved everything wrong, had proved himself that he wasn't going to go invade Poland, is I think where everyone realized, okay, we may not be able to stop him, but there's that point where you have to, where you got to say, I have gone far enough.
Well, I'm going to borrow from Limitless. Human beings are not designed to stop when it's enough. We seem to be creatures of excess, and you know we've invaded. Let's look at the Germany example. They invaded France. They invaded Poland. Why not just sit on that and say, okay, you know, we're good. We're going to live off the interest for a few decades. They're not going to do. Most human beings don't do that. They go, okay, we've got this. I want to continue to increase my power, increase my money, increase my wealth, and keep going. And you see that all the time.
Yeah,
but that's our greatest strength as humans.
Yes,
it's
but
like, I'm sorry. I'll let you go first.
Sorry, but that's where you have to have the enlightened self-interest to say, okay, now how am I going to be able to work with the other people in trade and so on to improve my power base a little better, rather than directly force take over here? When do I stop with the current tactic and adjust to another tactic to not only increase that power but win people in the process? I mean, he won no friends invading Poland, let's face it.
No, but even so, well, we can go into more complex stuff about that in a moment, but first off, I want to state that the greatest trait of humanity, period, is our greed. Like, good enough is a misnomer. It is never good enough. We always want more. We always want a better house, better quality food. We want better comforts. We want to be in a better position. We want to learn more. We want to know more. We want to have more in general. If we didn't, then outhouses would have been good enough. We never would have invented indoor plumbing. We wouldn't have been like, well, it's okay, we survived the plague. It's like, no, we want to make it so there's never a plague again. We want to make it so that we wipe polio out entirely. It's not good enough that you can survive it. We want it to the point where it's impossible to suffer from it in the first place. Like, there always has to be more to an excessive degree. It's never good enough, and that's what pushes us to be better than we ever were.
True, but but even pushing ourselves in that greedy way is actually an altruistic version that we actually improve society as a whole. However, let's take, for example, here the social justice warriors. They want to push their agenda, but they want to keep the power. they're not wanting to do it for the whole. They're doing it for their own egos.
Yeah, it's unfortunately part of the problem too. Is the
Yeah,
methodology.
the thing is to get the ego out of it and see where you're going to directly apply it to better the whole society. This is where social justice falls.
It's not even just that. It's also the method at which they do it. Like, if we go back to, like, the whole Nazi thing, like, once they had basically rebuilt their economy, they built it on producing war machines, primarily. Like, the bulk of the people in Germany were producing munitions. They had to do so. It was like the only thing they had that they could make money from. And then once you're sitting on like a pile of weapons, where do you go from there? Especially when, like, the psychological thing, they had to get people out of like a suicidal state. They're like, okay, well, you're not the bad people that they were telling you are. It's actually, you're the good people. You're the chosen people. You're the best people in the world. Everybody else is just jealous.
All right, I'm going to call you guys back to topic.
Okay.
Come back.
Sorry.
Back.
Well,
I can actually work on
JIHAD.
this. I can actually work on this. I'd been trying at many points to try and get a word in edgewise. But if we really wanted to get a franchise and compare that a little bit closer to what one could identify as terrorism, why don't we fucking go into Dune? Holy shit!
Oh yeah.
Because you know he was using like the whole religion and radicalized people who are already fucking shit up, and just goes in and fucks everyone over, and becomes basically their messiah. And then you go into Children of Dune, and it goes into the excess of all that. Of what do you do now that you're the messiah? Basically, what do you do? How does it affect everything? And
Same thing with other ones too, like
Yeah.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was very similar in plot, and then that turned into Fury Road with the feminist love. So, I don't know.
But I mean, if Star Wars is actually less a situation of a story being about terrorism and more about it's the hero's journey.
Exactly.
It's very much the classic hero's journey, and that's why it resonates with so many people.
It's not a science fiction movie, it's a fantasy, and fantasies don't tend to look at dystopian futures or stuff. Like, you have, like, the young farm boy who becomes a hero. He uses a sword. You've got, like, the old wizard who is his mentor. You've got the evil baron who happens to be his father. And you have the evil king. Like, they changed the setting a bit.
Yeah, but same thing.
It's a fantasy. You've got magic and swords and stuff like that, and fantasies don't focus on these things. Science fiction does, and it's not a science fiction movie.
Yeah, and it's all basically in space, and that's one of the reasons why I think the prequels had no possibility of doing well, because it's not really the same story. I think they tried, but it wasn't the same thing, because what they did was they tried to make Anakin seem not like this humble kid. They made him instead like this prodigy. And you couldn't understand how he could possibly be a prodigy because his actions didn't reflect the actions of a prodigy, and he was arrogant, and it was very difficult for you to identify with. Like, you couldn't decide who in particular were you actually supposed to identify with in this story, who was supposed to be your path into the story. They couldn't fucking decide, now could they? It certainly wasn't Anakin, because Anakin was incredibly difficult for anybody to attach themselves to, because he was an asshole. Like, all the time.
Well, he went from being a badass to just being bad.
Yeah, and I think the biggest I think the biggest problem with using Anakin is everybody saw Darth Vader first, and he was a badass. He was the bad motherfucker you did not want to come across. And then to go back and see Anakin as a boy who loved his mother, who's actually a fairly good, decent human being. It was the cognitive dissonance between the two. And it's like you watch the journey to the dark side for Anakin, and it's just like, okay, he goes from being a good kid to a whiny little shit to
whinier shit who decides to go and overthrow everything because he didn't get promoted.
yeah,
Who gets
that's
by
pretty
his
much it.
master because he didn't have the high ground. He couldn't jump high.
Well, yeah. Well, there's also the fact that the whole his wife was gonna die, which he didn't follow the rule. He broke the rules in the first place. He wasn't supposed to get married. He wasn't supposed to have a relationship, form attachments. It's like, okay, you're just basically breaking all the rules and being kind of a dirtbag. And yeah, how do you go from that to being this badass motherfucker?
Well, that also gets into a weird situation, too. Like, basically the whole premise there was that if you have any emotions at all, or you don't hold them completely under your thumb at all times, then you turn evil. And even good emotions like love are also evil. And I think it was kind of a very oversimplified look at the concept. Like, they tried to express something deep and meaningful, and they botched it pretty bad.
Probably, which is I think where the prophecy of the person coming to restore the balance to the Force actually came in, was that somebody would actually realize the problem here and start saying, okay, the good stuff, yes, we need to focus on the good, kind of stay away from the bad, which if you look at Native American mythology, the story of the two wolves, it's kind of I see it kind of a take on that. You have the light side and the dark side, and depending upon which side you focus your energy on, that's the side that shows up the most and shows how your character is. And I think that's where a lot of Jedi kind of got sidetracked over the centuries. You see what I'm saying?
I can see that. And ultimately it's supposed to be your deeds, because to be honest, Anakin wasn't the first Jedi to have a wife. The whole situation, or to be having mates or something like that. They've made exceptions in the past, but they had no problems with it because typically those people were like Jedi masters, and they could handle their shit.
I think that could have been the whole theory. I mean, yes, you're monastic because you have to learn to control the point, so that when you do have children and they are force sensitive, you can raise them properly.
I'm trying to remember the name of that one guy who was on the Jedi Council. He had like the forehead that went on for days. What was his name?
Mundi.
Yeah. He actually had to go and take a few wives and stuff because his race was having serious problems with their population, and so yeah, he was totally getting busy.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying is, you have to build your character first before you start creating the other stuff, and I think that's where Anakin went wrong. So, I mean, but to see him fall that badly, yeah, it's kind of a bit.
I don't know if he really had that far to go. Like, when you look at him, even as a kid, he was kind of arrogant.
True.
Like, I mean, that whole line of, oh, we have to turn off the autopilot, it's going to get us both killed. It's like, oh, so like the kid who's never set foot in like a starfighter at all knows better than the machine that is specifically programmed to pilot that particular ship.
Well, but thinking about it this way, I'm going to look at it logically. If you're out there and you're watching what's going on, and you see people getting shot down who are staying on the autopilot, I'm going to, again, kind of like somebody else, I'm going to borrow from Buck Rogers in the 25th century. When he went into the 25th century, he got into this ship, and all the pilots were flying around on not autopilot, shooting based upon a targeting system, and he turned that targeting system off, and he started just basically annihilating the enemy. It kind of says, we're missing a lot using this. Let's go to this. That works. Okay. Sometimes you got to sit there and say, okay, this isn't working. Let's try something else.
Yeah, it's taking a step back to try to solve a problem that is in the here and now. And sometimes you may have to add a little bit of a tech switch, which you didn't have in the past, to solve that problem, but it's also the over-reliance on certain pieces of technology.
Well, to bring it back to Star Wars for a moment, like to look at, like, say, the trench run, where it's like, Luke, you've turned off your equipment. Like, is everything all right? And it's like, the thing is, he was being told repeatedly by Obi-Wan, trust your feelings. And then you go back into the prequels, and they're stressing over and over, don't rely on your feelings.
Well, see, I think that's why everybody I've ever talked to has said that the person who was there to bring balance back to the Force was Luke, not Vader. And at the time, everybody thought it was Anakin, but in reality, the clues were at the beginning in Episode 1. Yoda's talking about there's always two Sith, the Master and the Apprentice. So part of that, I can kind of see the argument that the bringing balance to the Force was losing the huge Jedi Order so that there would only be two Sith and two Jedi.
Yeah,
but didn't Palpatine in a way survive, I think, and then possess somebody, so that technically there was only one Jedi and one Sith for a while, so technically Anakin did bring balance to the Force, if only for a short time.
Was made by Vader, because Vader had killed off all of the Jedi. He balanced it exactly as he said. There were two Jedi left, which was Obi-Wan and Yoda, and then there were the two Sith. And that was the balance. Like, it was unbalanced heavily in the Jedi's favor. And they never really stopped to think about what it meant by balance. Like, balance does not mean heavily slanted in your favor.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is bringing balance to anything, bringing equality to anything, and I use this a lot when I argue with feminists. It's like, equality does not necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing. You can sit there and say, everybody gets 50 lashes. That's still equality. That's still balance. You're not going to like it, but it's still there.
Yeah, and to some degree you can't get 100% perfect balance. Like, if you look at the Force and stuff, not everybody's Force sensitive. Like, is it ever going to be balanced where, like, the average individual who has no Force sensitivity at all, are they ever going to be balanced with the others? That's why when you looked at, like, the Star Wars Online game, like the MMO of it.
Which one?
The first one.
Galaxies?
Galaxies. Like, when they first introduced the Jedi, it was, like, unbalanced as hell because they had to make Jedi so much more powerful. And then they had to counteract it by making them constantly be hunted by, like, the Empire. So it's like, yes, you get a benefit, but now you get a negative to balance it out. And you're not balanced with anybody else, and it turned into a mess.
True. Very true.
And then when you think about it, on Coruscant, when you had, like, the height of the Jedi Order in the Old Republic and everything like that, I mean, didn't you have like huge government involvement with a major religion in town? Like in a major religion, and was like, you know, hiring them out to go kill people. I mean, isn't that kind of highly unethical?
Hello? It
Yeah, it
depends
looks
on
like
how you want to
it looks
define
like
it.
we lost the show for a moment. Okay, James, you still there?
Jim, I think you. Hello?
Hello,
Hello?
James, you there?
I think we lost
Yes,
it.
I am, and we are still broadcasting, folks.
Okay.
Still says
Okay.
live in the
Well,
corner.
well, I'm saying that wasn't in a way the government favoring Jedi as a religion? Isn't it like highly unethical?
Well,
Well,
it benefited them.
it definitely benefited the
Did.
Jedi, but was it unethical? What were the Jedi there to do? They were there to protect people.
I know, but
Maintain peace and order, but that's when you get into a situation. It's like, okay, am I going to give up my liberties and such for being held accountable to the government, which has like laws and actual judges and stuff? Or am I going to give my freedom up so that I can be kept safer and more protected by the Jedi, who basically it's a single individual who acts as judge, jury, executioner. Like, you play like the Old Republic, that's exactly what you did, constantly.
exactly, and that's kind of highly imbalanced. So to some degree, when people were suggesting, like, oh yeah, you know what, the Jedi have kind of gotten to excess. You know, it has kind of gotten a little bit out of control. Yeah, it fucking has, because you go from being like those kinds of peaceful warrior monks to some degree to being like full-on out soldiers by the time of the Clone Wars. Like, they were all like fucking generals and shit.
So the question is, was it really terrorism? Because that's what the article that we're looking at had. Is it basically terrorism for the Jedi to try to get back into power again and to get rid of the Sith? Like, Sith
Now,
basically had a relatively good thing going on. There wasn't really any wars going on.
It wasn't, but it was still like really, really bad. I mean,
Well, I'm going to put it from this perspective. You look at what happened. Was Luke trying to put the Jedi back in power, or was he just trying to stop people who would... I mean, if you look at the actions of the Empire, they killed innocents, they attacked people for no reason. If you think about their actions, you could sit there and say, okay, these people are doing things and attacking people for no reason.
Well, are they really attacking people for no reason? Like, they had fairly decent explanations. I especially liked... There was a comedy version called Troopers, which you can find on YouTube. It's about 10 minutes long, and it basically does like the cops routine, but with stormtroopers, and they had a full explanation of what happened that caused like Luke's aunt and uncle to get killed, and it ended up being that they were having a domestic violence thing going on. Like, his aunt was freaking out because Luke disappeared to run off with the rebels or something, she thought, because his uncle told him to stay behind to work on the farm. The stormtroopers were actually being relatively good about it and trying to like break up the domestic violence thing, and she's the one who runs out with a bomb and blows everybody up.
Yeah, I want to. I want
Actually
to.
made sense.
Well, whether it makes sense or not doesn't necessarily mean that's what happened. I mean,
No, it should have though.
yeah, no, but what about
Well,
Alderaan?
what about Alderaan? Alderaan shot first. I mean, if you slow down the special edition, Alderaan shot first.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
God, please.
No. Well, the situation is that if you have a government or where they're willing to basically say, okay, they're basically willing to take out a planet just to say, like, yeah, this is what happens if you fuck with us. I mean, at that point, it's like, it's probably within your best interest to decide to overthrow them.
Possibly, but keep in mind, Alderaan was also the one that was basically encouraging the rebels.
Well,
Like,
no, it's Princess
so-
was, not specifically Alderaan.
Alderaan shot first. Okay, I'm gonna sit there and say that's a load of horse shit and justifying some bullshit. Sorry, Kat. I love you to death, but we both know you're justifying bullshit here.
Yeah, I want to play devil's advocate, or
trying to
advocate
yeah.
in this case.
It's like the argument of like whether or not it's better to leave a tyrannical dictator in power or deal with like the aftermath that's going to come with a whole bunch of people scrambling and having no idea of how to run a country because they haven't had to for years.
Well, see, that's the thing is, if you look at it, there's always going to be the chance that, you depose the tyrannical dictator, someone worse is going to come into power. That's a chance you have to take. But see, here's the thing with life. You sit there, you make a decision, you take the action, and then you deal with the consequences.
The longer you wait,
Or you blame somebody else for the consequences of your actions, and that it was all against you in the first place.
the longer you wait to take out a tyrannical dictator, the worse it is going to be. Because, like I said, people are going to forget how to run a country. They won't even know what the fuck a proper country looks like. Like, let's say you were gonna take out like Kim Jong-un or something. Like, do you think that the people there would have any fucking idea of how to run shit?
No.
No.
Or a better example, Iraq. They took the dictator out of there. It's been worse off than before.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think part of the problem is that we went in there and took the dictator out, but also the fact that we didn't actually show them a good government to base theirs on, because we've been fucked up for years. I mean, come on.
Just throwing, like, democracy at you, and it's like, everything will be better, and it's like, not if you have, like, one group of people that is significantly larger than the other group,
Yeah.
and they don't agree with each other, and one of them, well, because of democracy, can simply outvote the other. So what do you expect to happen? The group that is smaller is going to go to extremes, because as soon as you remove the possibility for peaceful protest, you're going to get violent protest.
Yep.
Like, that's just what happens. You can't take away like an entire class of people's ability to have any meaningful say, because, well, you're only 10% of the population, so you can't have any real say.
Well,
they're going to turn around and shoot back.
At the same time, Kat, I mean, even if you do have that 10%, they are the minority, yeah, they're going to start radicalizing. At what point do we sit there and address? How do we address this? I mean, unfortunately, your argument kind of lends credence to the social justice mindset.
Well, can I make a point actually? And
Go for it, Rachel.
Something I think is actually kind of funny if you think about it. Sometimes the only way that certain people can actually unite is under a common foe. But once that foe is gone, everybody will then start fighting. All the infighting comes back, and all of the lack of conflict resolution. Basically, you never actually solve all the problems that you have with each other as groups. You just kind of united under that one mutual enemy. And so because you didn't have any conflict resolution, guess what fucking happens now that guy is gone?
Well, I think yeah, I think that's kind of what's been happening in the U.S. for the last few decades, is that we've never had the conflict resolution. We just keep having that big bad enemy to keep fighting against. And now with the current elections, we have it again, and everybody's sitting there saying, okay, it's Trump who's the big bad, is he really?
No, he's not really. The only thing is that he's actually being somewhat honest about his intentions, whereas everybody else is only telling you what they feel like telling you until they get elected.
Or telling you what you want to hear.
About it.
Yeah, or telling you precisely what you want to hear. And that's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, Trump is stupid, Trump is this, Trump is that, and everything like that. Do these people actually believe that a good portion of these candidates are actually smart individuals, or if they're just people that folks have just sort of built up and riding on everyone else's shoulders? They're basically a talking head for the government. That's really the job that you're applying for, to be honest.
Yeah, and most of these guys are lawyers. They didn't make it into a science field to begin with, for the most part.
Okay, once again, I'm going to kind of... I'm actually going to sit there and call it on this one, because we keep getting off topic.
Yeah. Well, there's so much... That's the problem with science fiction. It kind of reflects the society. That's what...
Well, but that's the thing with science fiction. It will always reflect the society. It will always show... What is it? Star Trek puts it best in the Mirror series. You're looking at the society from a twisted perspective.
Well, that's also the thing, is the original trilogy was fantasy, the prequel trilogy was science fiction. I don't even know what the Disney one's going to end up being. I'm hoping they go more towards fantasy.
No.
No,
I'm not gonna say no spoilers. No, we're leaving the new ones out for now. I will sit there and rip them apart in a couple of weeks when everybody's had a chance to see them. In which case, yes, spoilers will come in a show or two. But for now, let us move on to the next topic. Star Wars is problematic.
Star Wars is problematic. Oh, like the woman saying that it's racist and shit, or being a Star Wars fan is complicated.
Let's go with the complicated one. I want to save the Star Wars is racist for last.
Oh, okay.
Wait, maybe I should bring up my feminist voice. Oh my gosh, you guys, do you realize how problematic Star Wars is? It's totally problematic. There's simply not enough women and minorities in Star Wars, and if we just shove more in there, somehow it'll fix the problems that we have in society.
Every time I hear someone tell me we need to shove more in there, I'm just like, yeah, the thought in my mind is just like, somebody please shove a dick in this woman's mouth.
Jem, I find that incredibly sexist, and I think that is...
Someone shove a dick in Rachel's mouth.
I'd like to borrow a comment that was left on the video itself, which is, somebody called Narf said, it's called Star Wars, not Star Slumber Party. Men go to war, while women stay home and enjoy the protected status afforded to females. Women don't have to die in Star Wars, unless they want to. So the men basically get drafted. They're told they have to go to war. Women have the choice to stay home, and most intelligent people are smart enough to stay home when they don't have to go get themselves killed.
Also, furthermore, there's actually a very specific reason why there weren't that many women in the original trilogy. And there have been a couple people who have talked about the philosophy behind Star Wars and everything like that, but one of the main reasons is that the lack of women, the lack of frills and things that are nice is symbolic of all of the hope and great warm emotional aspects of things in the past are now gone. It's just cold and calculating and not at all comfortable. There's a lot of sharp edges and everything like that. There's nothing that's particularly soft and emotional, and that's, like I said, it's supposed to be symbolic. But yeah, that's the reason why you don't have as many women. It's like there's no chance of comfort.
Well, it might very well be the case. I don't know about the original one, but I do know that like The Empire Strikes Back, there was an awful lot of imagery like that used constantly. Like, even just like, say, how Han and Leia are hugging close together. Like, they have the screen taken up. Like, about 80% of the screen is just taken up by machinery. They're squeezed off into the corner. And that's supposed to represent, like, the overbearing aspect of, like, the Empire. You have other scenes where they're held apart with a stormtrooper in between them. Stuff like that. It's like all this imagery is snuck in like masterfully.
So there's no love or compassion, basically.
There's actually a little bit of that even at the beginning of the film when they're still on hot that you just built up, just inspired me on thinking on this one, where C-3PO is like, I just commented that was cold in the princess's room, and R2, of course, turned on the temperature and melted the room. So even the attempt at warmth gets doused.
Yeah.
With consequences because you have to dry out all the clothes.
It's supposed to be incredibly harsh and unforgiving, and typically what people associate with being a warm and welcoming atmosphere is a place where you have women and children, and you see almost like no children, if I recall.
No, you see no
in the
children.
original trilogy.
Yeah, you see no children in the original trilogy. This is not a war zone. Is not a welcoming place.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Is that this is not a welcoming place. This is not a place where things are being able to thrive. This is not a place where there's love and compassion where it can truly thrive. Which is why the whole aspect of Han and Leia getting split up the moment when they're moments from realizing their love for each other is such a big deal. It's such a big deal.
So where are the places of warmth and love and compassion and decadence? Oh, it's like Bespin, which is controlled by the Empire, and like Jabba the Hutt's place, decadence, lots of it. Oh, they're all slaves.
Yeah.
It's like it's very dystopian in a way.
The only places you see it is in the natural planet side. I mean, look at Yavin, or not Yavin. Oh God, now I'm brain farting and I hate getting old. And also I'm fighting a little allergy to the Wampa here. What's the planet around Death Star? Second Death Star, Jedi planet.
Endor.
Thank you.
Endor. Yeah.
Endor. You see all that passion and love break out there because, yes, the Ewoks could be considered kind of childlike, yes, but you also see
they also
the
have
love.
A lot of females.
Females and children and things like that. So there are baby Ewoks and stuff like that there.
Yeah, and you see the love build up you see the love story kind of come to fruition between Han and Leia.
Yeah. Because we're finally in a natural environment, a place outside of all this machinery and this control, this authoritative rule. They can finally be free. So it all makes sense. But this kind of thing is entirely alien to social justice warriors. They can't think beyond that or outside of the box. They're just boxed into there has to be a certain number of women, there has to be a certain number of minorities, there has to be all this stuff. They don't understand that all of these
the minority thing too, because they're always token minorities. It's not like, well, we want like a fully fleshed out character. It's like, no, we just need like one black guy and we need one Asian guy and we need like this many women, and it's like you're not making characters because they're characters that fit with the plot. You're just making token things that just show up for the sake of having them.
And they have to end up being token characters because you can't actually have them be flawed, because if you do, they'll say that they're choosing that particular minority group to then be the evil one.
Or to be the weak one that's being captured, or to be the violent one. It's like there's always some reason, like no matter what you do with them, they're going to be viewed as in a negative light because they're looking for an excuse to complain, and they will always find one.
Yeah.
And the whole, do you guys remember the whole, like, slave Leia situation? They don't even, they simply don't understand any of that either. The whole idea is that Leia is, like, totally, she's being subjugated, she's being made to be seen as an object, or not even necessarily an object, but she's basically meant to be seen as this pretty little thing, and it's kind of like he's conquered something in a way, and that's his trophy, his like Jabba
He was willing to go into that because she could use it against him.
Exactly.
Well, I want to point this out.
Well, I was gonna finish.
Okay, go ahead. You finish, then I want to point something out.
But the whole situation is that, yeah, it was ultimately part of the plan. To be honest, is that had to happen. And then the moment that everything turned, what happens? She's gonna go.
Grabs a blaster.
Yeah, and she kills Jabba the Hutt. She fucking strangles her, sir.
With the chain of oppression she tried to tie him up with.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's incredibly symbolic, and they don't understand shit like that. All they care about is that a woman can be subjected to that sort of stuff to begin with.
Yeah, I like Carrie Fisher's response to that little thing like that. Yeah, I was wearing a suit that, yeah, if you looked right, you could see all the way down the panties to China. But no, seriously, the thing was metal. I mean, she had nothing else underneath there.
I know that. And
but yes, even in that compromising position, I killed the guy that kidnapped my lover.
Yeah.
And I look good doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that just completely annihilates the entire social justice warrior thought process in this, is that not only was she able to do that, was she able to rescue herself, she could do it looking like a fucking gorgeous woman in next to nothing.
Yes.
That has always been what I consider the test for a strong woman.
Yes.
That and Ripley from Aliens, but you know.
Kick-ass in high heels.
Yeah,
Ripley did it in
high heels,
undies. Just in her undies.
Yeah, in metal undies. That could give you a good view of everything.
Well, no, I said Ripley. Ripley was...
Yeah. Well, trust me, there was a couple of shots there that I could have sworn I could have seen what her GYN doctor could have only seen.
Tell us more, Usagi. Tell us how you really feel.
Whoa. We are not going X-rated today.
Yeah,
I'm gonna sit there and say, okay, is Star Wars racist?
No.
I'd
No.
say speciesist. Poor Rand.
The closest it came to, I think, almost to racist was probably Jar Jar Binks, and even that's like pushing it. That's reaching to call that racist, I suppose. But it's like, I think that Jar Jar Binks is probably just an insult to pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
It just proves stupidity exists in the universe, even with...
And it's not even that he's stupid, it's that it insults the intelligence of the audience. Like, he's supposed to be there to make you feel smarter, I suppose.
Well, see, if they're pandering to egos... Well, I was going to say, if they're pandering to egos, Jar Jar did a great job. But the thing with it is he's the useful idiot.
Yes. He's the feminist! You gotta...
Hey, doesn't he make the entire thing possible? Like, all this crazy shit? Yeah, he is the useful idiot. He's like the literal useful idiot, and then later on everybody's like, so this is how democracy ends, with thunderous applause. Well, weren't you fucking asking his ass to do all this shit, like, a while back? Like, didn't Amidala, like, totally fucking ask Jar Jar? Or didn't they totally ask Jar Jar to help them to vote Palpatine in the first place?
Yeah, that's the path of good intentions.
Like, no, that's the thing, though. They're like, this is how democracy is. Like, everybody who tries to suggest that that they try to put anybody applauding or whatever to something they don't agree with this, but they seem to forget that all of this stuff was about good intentions, and they
Well,
thought
it was their idea.
it was totally their idea. So it's like.
Yeah, you go back to
what you wish for thing because they got exactly what they asked for.
Yeah, you go back to episode 1. The whole point of it was to get him in power to get rid of the blockade.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm going to borrow from the recent A-Team movie with the guy who played Qui-Gon Jinn.
Liam Neeson.
Yeah, with Liam Neeson, he's like, 1 to 2 steps isn't the plan. You want to beat the enemy's move before it's been made. Or, better yet, make them make the move for you. And that's the whole point of what Palpatine did, is he played chess so well, they were playing right into what he wanted.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. No. People like that are master players.
Are we going to say that he was a masturbator?
Yeah.
Sure. He set some bait. He set some bait.
Sure. But do you know that Darth had a wife? Elevator.
Oh, damn you, Scotty. That's bad. That's bad, and you should feel bad.
No, I don't.
But he doesn't.
He never will. He will never feel bad for this.
So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to kind of keep it on topic but move it to something a little older. The Hooper X speech about how Star Wars is racist.
Oh, God. The woman in the... Oh, no. Wait, I don't know if I actually heard it in full, but I don't know if I have the strength. Could you give me the gist of it?
Usagi?
No, what? No. I had to get chemotherapy the last time I had that. That gave me cancer.
Oh, God. No, but I think, wasn't it something along the lines of Darth Vader is black, and so when you opened the helmet, like he was white, that's racist?
Yeah, it's like the explanation was he had the black voice actor while he was being all evil, but as soon as he repented and became good, then they took off the helmet and it turned out he was white because, Luke is totally black.
I know, right? He's totally a black guy, or looks half black, and so of course Vader should be black underneath the. One of the things that we notice early on is that's not his fucking real voice. He's a fucking.
It's a modulator to make him intimidating.
Yeah, it's an electronic. So that's the thing. So for them to say that it's necessarily a black voice, I mean, James Earl Jones, I don't even know if that's necessarily a black voice.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
He's got a baritone voice. What other baritone voice?
James Earl Jones is a black man,
yes.
and he has a very strong baritone voice. But yes, it's like the man is stacked in armor, in black armor. He's designed to look intimidating. Why wouldn't they go with a deep baritone, authoritative voice? Yeah, especially when he's been such a whiny little bitch.
Yeah. You think Christian Hayden is going to give?
Okay, you think Christian Haydenson is going to be
Hayden
scary?
Christensen.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Christian Haydenson. He doesn't even deserve to have his actual name used. Fuck it. But Kat was saying something, and I want to hear what Kat had to say.
Well, I was making a quip about Dark Helmet, but more than that, though, is Vader was specifically designed like to have the helmet and everything and the mechanical mask for the express purpose of making it difficult for the audience to relate to him because he was so detached from humanity. They couldn't even get facial expressions from him, and that was specifically intended.
Yeah, and so for them.
So what other actors in the 70s had a nice baritone voice that could have been replaced? Could have replaced James Earl Jones.
I don't think there could be anyone, but if you also look, frickin' Ray Park in episode 1, they did the same thing because he's got kind of a geeky high voice, but you want him to seem threatening.
Right.
And that's the thing is you want it with Star Wars. You wanted you wanted the villain to be threatening, to seem intimidating and scary.
Yes.
Whereas with say the prequels, you wanted to be able to relate to him and understand the journey, but I think they failed on that one.
Yeah.
But to call it racist, I'm gonna have to sit there and say, you know what, Hooper X did a better job of making it out to be racist than Mellisa Harris Perry.
I got a voice of the period of time there, and we all know him too. That could have done the baritone voice for him. Michael Ansara, the guy who played Kang. He could have done that nice, intimidating voice so that in that time frame. He only died here a few years ago. But they could have done Michael Ansara. They could have done, who else?
Well, they could have done a lot of things. They could have put Vader in just straight white, but no, white is actually a heroic color.
Unless you're in Japan, in which case it's evil.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Asian cultures take white as death or evil.
Yes. It's because it's actually associated with like funerary rites.
Exactly.
Drat, I was gonna say Gene McDaniels, but he's black too.
But see, the thing with it is in the U.S., the white is heroic, and the good guy, the black, is the bad guy, especially back in the 70s, which, if you look at Star Wars, it's nothing more than going back even further to the 50s of Lucas's childhood with the Western serials.
Exactly.
The imagery is there to evoke that time.
The bad guy comes in black. That's how you all go, ooh, hiss, boo, hiss. And everyone booed and hissed when I first saw this film when Vader broke in. Because he was in black. The entire area was white. They knew he was a bad guy from old cowboy spaghetti westerns going, boo, hiss.
Mm-hmm. So, hello?
Yes.
Well, I don't have much else other than to sit there and say, you know what, Kevin Smith did it better than Mellisa Harris Perry.
That was got to be the ultimate facepalm article for the lineup today.
Yes. Well, I'm going to. I think we've kind of beaten dead horses enough.
I think so too.
Or maybe we've forced the issue.
Yeah.
No, it's been beaten. It's been beaten off enough to the point where it says no more.
Okay, so
beating dead tauntauns.
Yeah.
So what about the final topic or the idea of whether Star Wars is a boys' movie?
No, I thought we already covered that.
Or a movie, or a movie that their dads take their sons to.
Well, I think we already covered that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did cover that.
Was,
but it's just...
Yeah, you jumped that. You jumped right on that.
Yeah. I was all over that. Okay, what about the? I don't know if any of you guys saw that video where they were suggesting, where they had those two women who were talking about how hard it is to be a female Star Wars fan because someone's constantly checking their geek cred.
Well, all I gotta say is I saw a meme the other day where someone was sitting there saying, you know, I'm a Star Wars fan. I've seen all 3 movies. It's like, well, you know, I generally say that yes, the prequels exist, but they don't exist.
And they were saying basically,
when I say that that I've seen the movies, I say I've seen all 6 movies, but the prequels don't exist.
I'll say I sat through every one of these movies, release, re-release, special editions, and the prequels in the theaters. I only recognize the original 3 as being somewhat canon. Yes, the others you can watch at your leisure, or just for the sword fights, which is what I usually do anyway. And, of course, John Williams' score.
I would like to make one point that they don't seem to understand is that your geek cred is going to be questioned no matter what. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are. If you say, oh, well, I'm a fan of this series, you're going to be taken to task to find out if you actually are. It's just they take offense to the fact that they're getting the same treatment as everyone else. It's like, if you're a guy and you say, yeah, I like Star Wars movies, and it's like, okay, do you know this character?
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, I guess? Because that's just, people do this to everything. If
you love the genre, if you love the franchise, and I really do, and I always have, and I've had... And when I meet people who don't know me very well, they still take me to task on it, even though I generally can sit there and keep up with their questions. There are still things I don't know.
Yeah, but their acting like this never happens to anybody who isn't female. And it's like, no, this has nothing to do with being female. It has everything to do with you noticing it, because that's all you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where they miss out, is that the people who are taking you to task have that sense that you don't really know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
But anyway.
And typically they don't. I mean, if you're the kind of person who writes an article or does a video that says 5 things you shouldn't say to female Star Wars fans or whatever, it kind of points out that you are that kind of person that isn't an actual nerd, because if you were, you'd know that that the questioning and the measuring contests constantly happen whether or not you are a male or a female. That is probably the biggest indicator that you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about and that you're here for attention.
That we asked, like, earlier, it's like, who shot first, Han or Greedo? Or
hand shot.
Fucking Han.
Hand shot. Yeah, and that's
hand
the
shot,
point, though.
period.
This is something that gets asked. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. Everybody asks that question. And it's applied universally. And because it's applied universally, it is equality. They're the ones who will take offense at it because you're asking them at all.
How about
I'm gonna call it an episode and start asking for. Well, okay, fine. You tell me what you want to say, then I'll call it an episode afterwards. Then we'll define.
I was going to say one last thing. I was going to actually put us a task of actually saying 5 things you should actually never say to a real Star Wars fan.
Isn't it just like
Greedo shot first?
Okay. Well, okay, yeah. There you go. Greedo shot first. Here's another one. I
love Jar Jar.
There's another one. That Han should have said, "I love you."
Or how about Hayden Christensen is the best actor ever?
Or how about, isn't that just like that Star Trek thing?
Oh, Jesus. How about Jar Jar Binks is my favorite character?
I liked Picard.
That just makes me want to just shoot.
Exactly. Or what's a Mandalorian?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
that'll. Hey, James, you want to throw any in here on this?
And then we can.
James?
James?
James, this is the voice of God.
No, guys, I have nothing to add.
Okay, so then we'll just. I'll take that as James's final thoughts for the episode, and we'll continue around the room with Rachel.
All right, let me think. If there's anything else I can. Wow, this is a really great trilogy, but you know what? We could use more women in it. There we go. There's another one.
Okay. All right. Hey, Kat, you got anything for final thoughts?
Just that I suppose I don't think the original trilogy was perfect, nor do I think that the prequels were absolute garbage. They're not as good as the original, obviously, but they had a certain charm to them in their own way, as long as, Anakin wasn't on the screen. So, they weren't terrible. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that hate me for that, but I'm looking forward to the next one, which I'll be watching on Christmas Day. So.
All right, Usagi, your final
Hot
thoughts.
shot, period.
Well, I have my final thoughts do not come from Star Wars. It actually comes from Chasing Amy. Darth Vader, blackest brother in the universe, Nubian god.
Oh.
And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy Star Wars Episode 7 if you can. And take the red pill.